We're here. I wish I could give this feeling. I wish I could give this feeling. On the corner. What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Corner Podcast. Kel Dansby here, as always, with the old man Andreas and Kel, coming to you guys on Patreon. Shout out to everyone who just subscribed. I was walking in from like the parking lot, 3 people subscribed. So in that little bit of a walk into the Wynn Resort here for Blue Wire Studios, of course, man, it's amazing following. Everyone's building up. Everyone's hype. Remember, we'll be on Discord, chopping it up during the fights, during pro wrestling especially. These next 2 events, we're going to be on there acting a full fantasy booking. Producer Cole, baby, will be in there as well, talking with us. Cole should be on the show next week, now that I think about it. Recapping a pay-per-view and, of course, previewing AEW. So that's going to be a fun one. Shout out to everyone. I will let you know. Let me get this date correct because I got my phone open. Wednesday, February 28th, I'm going to set it up. It'll be in the Patreon also when I drop this episode. We are going to record the Corner and Friends episode right there so I can edit it and put it out next week before all that, in case you guys want to recap wrestling, talk AEW, all that good stuff for my wrestling people as well. So choosing 3 members of the Corner Club OG tier. If you don't get chosen this time, don't worry about it. I'm mixing it up every single time. So that'll be dope. And we're also going to do like little other fun stuff because I know people want to talk to Dre and act a fool, all that shit. So we're going to schedule it out. So Corner Club OG members, you're in the $10 tier. Just like you guys see our UFC guests here, chopping it up with us every week. 15 minutes, we'll make sure we include you guys, get you guys calling in, and be a part of the studio show as well. So we're going to randomly pick people throughout all the damn time leading up and really make sure our Patreon members are taken care of. So we appreciate you all. Dre, today, as always, I never tell you what the hell is going down for these Patreon shows. This one you're not going to be upset at me about. This one is fun. So people are like, yo, we love when you guys talk hip-hop. It's been a second. It was Dre's birthday. Before then, we talked, but it was more about like the festival and all that stuff. So I was like, what makes sense? We got to take it back to the roots, to the core. I looked up a list. It's on Complex. Don't kill me. don't kill me. This is actually not horrible for Complex. They got something semi-decent. The top 50, I'll go through a couple of 50 through 10. Our biggest thing is top 10. Hip-hop albums of the 80s.
Of the 80s?
Of the 80s. We're taking it back.
Bro.
They did 50, but we'll mix in our talk in between then. This is what is the earliest album, hip-hop album, you remember listening to?
LL Cool J. Was it LL Cool J? Walk Like a Panther?
Yo, I had to think. I was like, yo, that's crazy.
It might have been. It might have been LL Cool J, or it might have been Slick Rick.
I didn't hear a Slick Rick album until I was like 14.
Yeah. Slick Rick, LL Cool J. I'm trying to think like whole albums. Like I heard a lot of songs because they were on the radio, but a whole album. Because Slick Rick fucked me up as a kid. Children's Story and Adult Story. Boy, those the Great Adventures of Slick Rick. That might be the one that I listened to in its entirety. Or was LL Cool J. One of those 2.
LL Cool J, I'm going through the list. Radio was one I probably heard pretty young.
Yeah, it might have been radio.
My first one, though, the first one I remember in real time was my uncle playing me. It was probably around the same time. I don't know what beat what, but Leaders of the New School.
Okay.
Because my uncle went to the Fashion Institute in New York. That's how he got into the music business, because he was making the hats and the clothes for Leaders of the New School. So like the Busta Rhymes floppy shit and then the other dude in the crew. My uncle made all those by hand because he went to the fashion school and they're like, yo, you do this shit? New York's a small place, I guess, back then. So he was making all that for them. And then the second one, De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising, because he made the clothes and outfits for that. So they would give him, they didn't pay him, they would give him shit and give him vinyl and everything to bring home, and then eventually tapes. And then he ended up getting his job at Uptown because of that, and then Bad Boy, and shit rolls on. But those are the two albums I remember him bringing home and playing the album, like the actual album all the way through. And that was my first time listening to like an album front to back and seeing, and I don't know how he fucking did it, but he would like mark the album and like skip the needle so he knows like where to put it for certain songs.
Yeah.
I still don't understand that shit. But for me, I wasn't supposed to be touching it. That was one, because I was like 5 years old, 6 years old. And what you tell a kid like, yo, don't touch something. I was like, fuck this. I'd go put it on there and then drop the needle on. I'm sure I scratched the shit out of his record.
Probably.
But drop the needle on there and I would just let it play and be like, ooh. And I think I maybe had like a Game Boy. I don't know what fucking system was out there. I might have just had the first chunky Game Boy. And I would sit there and play video games. I was playing with my wrestlers, listen to the music, and watch out the window in case he came back. Because then I had to take that shit off, slide it back into the film, and then into the vinyl cover and put it back. Because if I didn't put like the film back on it, he'd catch me. So I have to do all that shit before he came in the crib. But those are the first two albums I ever listened to. And now, they both still hold up. Leader's New School, Busta obviously went on a run after that. But that album's not bad either.
No, the first ONS album is great, but 3 Feet holds up to the test of time. Like, 3 Feet High and Rising is an incredible album. But they don't make albums like that anymore. And I know that sounds old of me, but they don't. Like, they don't have a lot of timeless albums. There's just
That's not right. Kendrick has several.
But I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of things, it's a lot of disposable music.
Yeah. And I ask my dad this a lot because it's weird because New York was such a small place and they thought it was the epicenter of hip hop. But we would learn quickly that the shit spread and it was everywhere. But I wondered how much disposable music was back then. They just didn't have access to these ends of the world because there was probably a ton of whack people out there that we don't know just pressing vinyl.
Oh, there were whack rappers everywhere, but there was, again, it was a process to make an album. It was a process to release an album. Albums have release dates that people look forward to, stood in line at record stores to pick them up. Like, you spent time with music. Ain't nobody spending time with music. Like, last year, Killer Mike's the album of the year, but outside of that, what album you going to be listening to this year that came out last year?
Last year was tough. Conway.
Which one? Conway puts out music every goddamn
Not
week.
the compilation shit.
So
solo.
The solo album?
Yeah.
He put out a lot of...
It's
like,
in my phone. I forgot the name.
Griselda puts out so much music. Like, so much music.
A lot of that shit's compilations. I don't need to hear Conway and his younger crew. You know, some of them can spit, but I'm not going back.
It's just impossible to keep up with what's out there. Like, Benny the Butcher's album came out in January.
I've had it on rotation.
I thought it was okay. I wasn't as high on it as everybody else was.
Really? I
thought it was good.
Yeah.
But I people were like, this is early album of the year. I was like, bro, it's February. Chill out, right?
There's time, but it's really good.
But there's so much music that it's hard to keep up. Yeah, back then there's man.
Was the Drake album last year?
Yes.
Drake?
Wasn't good.
No, but the extended version.
But you didn't get an opportunity.
Scary Hour.
This is my point. You didn't get an opportunity. If you put out a whack album, there was no coming back from that.
No. He went quick. Looped it around.
You couldn't show up and be like, let me just add 5 rap songs on the end of this album. No, it was a rap for you. Yeah. Back then it was, because I used to buy everything from 1990.
What was your spot out here in Vegas? Before a hip hop site, obviously.
Odyssey Records. Odyssey Records, because they were open at midnight, and I would go, like me and the boys would go stand in line. I remember Bone Thugs came out, stood in line for that. Biggie came out, stood in line. I stood in line for everything.
People in Vegas love Bone Thugs. I got here and I didn't understand it.
I wasn't like the biggest Bone Thugs fan, but I legitimately bought everything. So from like 1990, I want to say 3 or 2 for the rest of my life. I never stopped. Every week, every Tuesday. Like,
until music became free.
Yeah. I would, like, when I worked as a kid, it's like in middle school, when I worked in the lunchroom, I would steal money so I could make sure I could buy albums on Tuesday.
Badass.
Like, whatever you pay for your lunch, I slide
half in that.
Yeah, I would half it, or I slide you an extra for half and keep it in my pocket because we never did inventory. And so I take the money and go to the record store, or I go to a spot called Mary Kay's in Vegas, which was an arcade. And I used to play Street Fighter and NBA Jam and all that shit. So I stole so much money.
Yeah.
They never caught me.
Yeah.
It never
Sleight
caught
of
me.
hand.
So legitimately, so my point is every week, like I would buy Illegal, The Youngsters. I would buy fucking High C.
You were buying deep cuts.
I bought everything. This is why my hip hop knowledge is so deep, because I bought everything. If it came out, I was buying it.
Yeah.
I bought Hoes with Attitudes, HWA. I bought The Conscious Daughters, which is actually a really good album. But going back and listening to it, I was like, The Conscious Daughters was kind of dope. Again, like High C, DJ Quick, like Ant Banks, that whole crew. Everybody that had music out, I was buying it. And it was cassettes. And then, the CDs were more expensive. So I was like, I can buy like 2 or 3 cassettes. For 2 CDs, I buy more cassettes. And again, back then, you were forced to listen to the entire album. If you bought it on cassette.
Plus, you really didn't have a CD like in your car, really. Like,
no.
Cassettes
I was a
easy.
kid. I didn't have shit. So it was like I had my little stereo.
I thought you had a hoop ride when you were like 16, 17.
But this is before that. Like the early 90s, I didn't have shit. I had my feet.
Oh, I thought you said 99. I'm bugging.
No, I'm talking 93.
Oh, yeah. Middle school still.
Yeah, I'm like.
Yeah, you were early.
Yeah, like super early, just going wherever I could to get out, put it in my Walkman with a little fuzzy headphones, with a little fuzz on them.
The small joint.
Yeah.
Yo, if that little fuzz layer was lost.
Oh, it's a wrap. Your ears and the bass sounds like.
That's the hardest plastic in the history of man.
Ever. But when you bought an album on cassette, you were forced to listen to it. Because if you were walking with your Walkman, you didn't have time to pull your Walkman out the pocket, hit fast forward, stop, rewind. You didn't have time to do that. There was no skip button. You just played whatever was on.
So you flipped the tape.
So there was so many bad albums that I listened to. I was like, fuck. But I'll never forget the day I bought the purple tape. And I was like, holy shit. Like when Criminology hit, I was like, oh my God. Same with Illmatic. That's why Illmatic is a classic to this day, because for most people, as soon as you hit play, it was on.
Yep.
Like, and then it ended. And then you just started over again. You just flipped it back. And I bought Illmatic so many fucking times. I swear to God, I bought that album like a million times. I bought LL Cool J's 14 Shots to the Dome, and I was so miserable when I listened to that album. Pink cookies in a plastic bag getting crushed by buildings. To this day, it's the dumbest fucking song ever. The backseat of my Jeep was a banger.
Was that lick his hand straight down to LL? Like at the WWE joint?
This is before that. Like 14 Shots to the Dome came out in,
I thought that
was No. This is before the Flavor in Your remix.
Thank God.
This is around the
Jump the
time.
Shark after that.
This is around the time Jump the Shark, Deepest Bluest. My hat is like a shark fin. Fucking hate that song. This is around the time The Chronic first came out. So I gotta even go back further.
So like
I was in like early middle school buying it, because I remember the day I bought The Chronic.
Your grandma did not give a fuck what you were doing.
Yo, she didn't know. So she would see shit. She saw The Chronic and was like, what the fuck is this, right? And then I'd play it dumb loud, and she would get mad at me. And we had like this Jewish lady that lived downstairs in our hood, and she would like bang her cane on the, because I just played, like, especially The Chronic. Yeah. I just played the ignorant levels.
Just leave the fucking Doggy Style album cover out.
Oh.
It's just
I'll never forget the day I bought the Doggy Style cassette. Like I came to school late because I wanted to make sure the record store was open so I could pick it up. And I got to school, and if anybody remembers Doggy Style, it had like the comic in there. And I opened it, and I was like, yo.
And class.
All my classmates was like, what? Yo. And my teacher was like, what is that? We're like, oh, shit. So that was a wrap for me when that came at. Doggy Style or Outkast when Southern Playalistic CD came out and the girl with the titties on the CD. Mm-hmm. I came to school and I was like, boink. And I was like, uh-oh. Had to close that shit up real quick. But that was a time because everything was memorable. So you bought an album for the artwork. You bought an album for the listening experience. You bought an album for the liner notes. Now you don't do any of that. You just...
I'd read the booklets for dumb long. Like embarrassingly long time.
I would get mad if a booklet didn't have the lyrics in it.
Yes.
Because I was that kid who...
How am I going to memorize these songs?
Well, see, I was that kid. So there's 2 things I was very obsessed with. Baseball stats and hip-hop lyrics. Baseball stats, because I played fantasy baseball with a pen and paper when Sporting News was around in, like, this is like the 90s. Like when I used to buy Upper Deck trading cards and Top Stadium Club and all that shit. So I used to obsess over statistics. So I used to write them down. So when I'm watching games, if you went 3 for 4, I'd do the math of what your average was following that game. Hip hop lyrics was the same thing. So I would buy an album if it had the lyrics, and I was like, thank God. If it didn't, here I go.
Pen and paper.
Pen and paper. When that Bone album came out, I was like, this is some bullshit.
But you're doing it.
I'm doing it. I'll never forget it. E99 album, Mo Murder was like my favorite song on that album. And I was like, I gotta learn this song. And I was like, the fuck are these guys talking about? So I would slow the tape down. I would hit play real slow so I could play it in slow motion so I could write down the lyrics. I was obsessive with hip hop lyrics. I was obsessive with music.
If anyone's ever written for Dre as like a journalist and he was your editor, this makes so much fucking sense right now.
Yeah.
This guy is, the attention to detail as an editor is next level. Now I understand it.
I mean, I know we're supposed to be talking about this complex list, but
we got time.
But
I got the giant clock.
The other day Static Selector posted about hip hop journalism, and I jumped in the conversation. Rob Markman, who's been talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
And a few other cats, I've been having conversations. We're like, man, like the state of journalism is like fucked. Like it's fucked. And today Vice is shutting down.
Yeah, people defunding it doesn't help.
No, it's disappearing.
Put their whole budget into social. And like, you don't think these people are journalists too?
Well,
it'd be a rude awakening.
There's just not. They don't value the written word. They don't value nuanced opinions. They don't value reviews anymore. And there's a lot of things that go into it. And I'm probably gonna talk to Rob about this because it's kind of the reason that I moved on for a minute, because I was like, man, y'all don't value any of this shit anymore.
Yeah.
So it was like when I saw this coming up, and my man Paul Bryson did a story today that quoted me about the state of hip hop journalism. It's a mess. Like journalism is a mess as a whole. Yeah. Like sports journalism, everything is a mess. But hip hop journalism is like a disaster because all the things that I was meticulous about, nobody cares about anymore. Right? So it's like all the things about lyricism or production or samples or history that I used to be very meticulous writing reviews or interviewing artists, like nobody cares. All people want to do is argue about dumb shit.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's like the downfall of music journalism. Like nobody's seen a review for Killer Mike's album. Like, if you've seen one, let me know.
Nah, you got to search the hashtag. That's reviews nowadays.
And that's trash.
Search the hashtag, and you get a bunch of reviews by people who aren't qualified to review.
And they're not really saying anything, right? Yeah. So it's like when I used to write for The Source or the other publications like Hip Hop Site and everything else, I had a system of how I reviewed albums. So, if I get an album, like Hip Hop Site, I'll never forget. They said I'm gonna write reviews. It was like, how many reviews can you write? I said I could probably do 3 a week. They gave me like a crate of CDs, right? And it was like, good luck, right? Because this is all the shit we got coming in. And I had a process. I listened to it in the morning. I play it on repeat 3 or 4 times. I take a break, play it in my car. I take a break, play it while I'm playing video games. I take a break and come back to it. I wouldn't write the review for at least 3 days because I have to digest it, because my favorite song on Wednesday may not be my favorite song on Friday, because that's just how listening experience changes, right? Something you may hear and the production just slaps you in the face. Lyrically, you might be like, it might be okay. And then another song, you'd be like, man, how did I miss this, right? And this is the banger. So I had a process. So when I wrote reviews, it wasn't track by track, but I would point out certain songs. So as people are talking about Killer Mike's album, I'm like, y'all not talking about like the importance of the song Slumber, or you're not talking about how he constructed his album. Y'all not even talking about sequencing.
Yeah.
Y'all are just like, this is a good album. And as a sidebar, I don't know if anybody saw Killer Mike's post where he wins the Grammy and like all these young kids are trashing him, like, and then they listen to the album, they're like, I'm sorry. And I was like, the art of discovery. Just because you don't know something doesn't mean it's not dope, right? But it was like, that's what reviews did for people. Reviews introduced you and made you want to listen to something. When I used to read reviews, again, Minya writing the Illmatic review, I was like, all right, I got to listen to this. Yeah. The way she wrote that review, I'll never forget cracking open that source. It was like, yo, I got to buy this album. We don't even have that. You just listen to an album. That's it. And now there's no interviews with artists about their music. Think about this. You don't see Tyler. Tyler talks about this a lot. Tyler's like, when are we going to start interviewing artists about the art? Because their interviews get really dumb. Like,
yeah, because they're just asking about stuff that'll hit and go viral and
right.
momentary.
Nobody's having a conversation about what went into the last album. Oh my God, I can't remember the name because it's too much music.
Oh, I forgot, but
But
it was like a hip hop mixtape.
But nobody's asking the questions about why he chose this sample or why he decided to have. I mean, a few people ask why DJ Drama's all over it, but he has his reasons. And he's like, nobody's talking to me about this shit anymore. Like, y'all just want moments. I want to have a conversation. Nobody's having conversations, and that's why like hip hop journalism is it's not dead, but it's disappearing. That's why like music, like nobody cares, and that's why to bring this all the way back. Those albums in the 80s had so much lasting power because that Run DMC album came out. That's legitimately all you had. Yeah. So you listened to that for months.
I will say there's like, in terms of social, there's people putting in work though. I wish I could find the TikTok, but it's probably buried in my feed. But I follow them and it's all over my feed now. But when someone drops an album, they'll go through and do the samples for each song on that album. And they just do one a week. Because music is so great, but then they'll do that for older albums on like Tuesday.
Right.
And then Fridays they'll do it for one new album. And they crush that shit every single time. And it's such a dope listen in a minute and a half. I think they do part two, part three. But you'll get that like in 3 TikToks. And you're like, yo, that's really dope. To be like, okay, you can break this down and add some nuance in a new way. Just on a platform that's new, and there's so many people. My biggest thing, and I used to tell Mark Kriegel this when I was at ESPN, is like, yo, you do these long form essays, and they're really dope. We just got to figure out a way to make it optimized for social. And because what you still do is very unique and really good.
Right.
We just have to make sure we put it in this format so that it resonates with today's culture. But your voice is needed in that space because there's not like there's a ton of young people that can do that shit. So it's like one of those things where I wish more people, and I'm not even that young anymore. I just happen to be in a young person's space. But I wish there was more people willing to help the people with the knowledge, the journalists with the knowledge, that all these publications like, yo, I don't need you. We just need social people. I wish there's more social people willing to help them. To be like, no, we need to keep you here. Yeah. This is how you do it. Yo, let me show you. Like, cool, like we make this shit happen. I can show you how to put this together and format it. So exactly what you wrote, okay, we can script out a TikTok series or YouTube shorts or something. It's very attainable. It's just not enough people are reaching out to the journalists who are really good and being like, all you got to do is learn a new format. It's like typing on a typewriter, bro, and then go into a computer. Yeah, like you learned how to do it. Like it's just a different format, but you still got it.
Yeah, it's the game again. The game is the game, man. And it's hard to figure out what that next step is because everything's cyclical and things will change. And the written word at some point will be interesting again. It's just not right now. And it's like
it still is right now. By the way, that's the biggest lie. If you look at any TikTok, any Instagram, everything that goes viral, I'd say 75% of the content that goes viral has captions.
Yeah, well,
75%. Every kid watches anime. Kids love fucking anime.
Yeah, but it's short bursts. I'm saying like
they all watch anime, Dre. Hours of anime, subtitles. They can't watch television anymore without subtitles. Words still matter, but it's how you give it to them.
Well, yeah, it's short. Again, it's short bursts. Like a white backdrop with a bunch of Times New Roman is not appealing for anybody to look at.
No, it has to be moving. Yeah, but they'll stay there for hours.
Yeah, like captions. Of course, like if you watch anime, you're used to captions. But there's different means to get to the education part of journalism, and schooling people and introducing people to new things. Like even things like playlists are a lost art. DJing is a lost art, right? The art of actual DJing, where finding records that blend into records that make sense, like people don't do it anymore. They just play a fucking song, right? Like, oh, what song plays? Like I do. If anybody follows me on like Apple Music, I do my little Soul Discovery playlist, and I'll include original samples with the sample that it was used for, and then I'll try to match songs that have the same feeling in them or the same artist. Like for instance, this week I on the playlist I started off with Gap Band's "Yearning for Your Love," and it goes into "Life's a Bitch," which sampled that. Which "You're Always on My Mind" sampled that. which 4 p.m. in Calabasas from Drake, people like, did it sample that? No, Drake references all 3 of those songs in that thing. And I've always wanted people, because it's what it did for me, is when you hear something and it comes from somewhere else, go back and check out where it came from. Like we had this conversation about on the wrestling pod about like doing the research, right?
Yeah.
Like you find this wrestler that you hear is dope. The WWE at one point did not care about the history of a pro wrestler, right? They were like, Ricochet's here now. That's it. They didn't want to talk about his work in New Japan. They want to talk about his work in PWG. But now they'll reference it.
Yep.
They'll reference a Nakamura.
Prince Puma. And
Yeah.
They'll not come out. They'll name some.
They'll reference those things, and you have to give people a nudge to go, I want to go see what Kevin Steen did in Ring of Honor. And what's this? Why him and Sami Zayn's beef go back so far, right? Like, that's what we got to do in music. Like, when we hear rhyme patterns from somebody, or artists reference each other all the time.
Yeah.
And somebody just got to point it out. Like, the argument about whether or not Drake is hip hop was a funny argument to me because Mos Def was so wrong. I get what he was trying to do, but you cannot dictate what hip hop is in 2024. Like you can't.
It is what it is. Yeah.
But to suggest that Drake is not a student of the game, right? Like again, I was listening to 4 p.m. in Calabasas, and the whole song he's referencing Bad Boy era shit. Like the whole song.
Yep.
He does songs where he references Dipset shit for a whole song. Or he samples music from other genres, or he rhymes like somebody else, or he takes a line. Jay-Z used to do it too with Big all the time. Like, to say that's not hip-hop, like, what are we doing? Hip-hop is sampling. Like, that's the art of the culture. We just get so caught up in saying it's mine and I don't want to share it with anybody else. That's really stupid. And that's how the culture doesn't grow.
Yep. And shout out to everyone who, as these publications are kind of cutting on budget and everything, there's so many people I've just heard is like, fuck it, like, what can we do ourselves? Like, what can we do? If there's money out there, like, who can we get? Those are good people. And I've heard it several times. Heard it earlier today. And my biggest thing is, and shout out to everyone who writes and edits, and I love, like, all my friends who do all that stuff. They're like, yo, you want to get involved? My first line all the time is, I'll do social. Like, and just, because at this point, my job, and I understand this, my job in the editorial space is not to go back and be a writer anymore. My job is to bridge the gap, is to know really good writers and knows what it takes to be a really good writer, and then know a shit ton about social and be like, I'm gonna make you work over here. You write that 2,000 words, and I make this shit look so dope on social media that it's hitting crazy. Right. We're gonna do a 10 slide. I'm gonna do graphics, all this shit, and you're gonna be like, wow. And we're gonna take your quotes out and put visuals with that shit. It's gonna blow your mind, and people are going to read what you did and think that you're so damn dope. And I just got to bridge that gap. So it's really cool. I know it works. It's just people have to keep creating that dope content. More people have to bring it to where it is now. Instead of being lazy and just grabbing UGC of the little girl who's like 2 years old and her mom's like, curse all you want in the bathroom. Yeah. And then that shit goes everywhere. It's like, yeah, you could probably repost that and get mad hits, but what are you doing for a hip hop site? Just because the little girl's black? Like, I've seen several. I mean, I was like, yo, the connection here is very small. Like, it's low hanging fruit.
It's business models, man. Like, when I got laid off from the sporting news, they cut our whole multimedia department. And if you look at their social media, there's nothing original. All they do is take stuff that's clipped from somewhere else and repurpose it. And the short-term vision of, oh, this might go viral because it hits the algorithm, that's cool. But in a year from now, your business is going to fail because you're not creating anything original.
100%.
There's no balance. And I understand, like, the business model, but like, the worst thing that I see when these publications start cutting people is like, we regret and we're so sad. No, you're not. You're not really sad, or else you would have figured this shit out before. Yeah. And I know the business model change is always difficult, right? It's never easy, and some things just don't work. But if you're, oftentimes, based on my experience of places that I worked at, I've watched people put the cart before the horse and just expect shit to work.
Yeah.
They'll go, well, we could start a podcast because everybody's got a podcast, but that's not how this works.
No.
And then when your business fails, you blame everybody else, but the reason why it fails is because you didn't learn the infrastructure of what makes a podcast successful, or you weren't willing to look at the long-term investment of a podcast, because it ain't going to hit in 6 months.
No.
Ain't gonna hit in 12. Some things take years. Like the Joe Budden podcast wasn't the Joe Budden podcast when Marissa Mendez was on there.
Nah.
And the
It
first
took
episode with
4
her
years before it hit at all.
It took forever. Like what was it called? I don't know the name of the podcast. Yeah. I remember when him and Marissa and Peter Rosenberg was on the first episode, and I was like, nobody knew, but he kept at it.
Yeah. Then they brought Rory in, then she left, and then they brought
they bought Marlon. But
Yeah.
the idea of businesses not understanding, like, oh, this might take some work, because the reality is a lot of people up top with money are stupid.
Yeah.
When it comes to the nuance of business, they know where to get the money, but they don't know how to hire the right people. And when things fail, they got to blame somebody. So, again, I don't want to cast any aspersions on sport news, but it was like when they cut our whole multimedia department, I was like, bro, what are y'all doing? And I look on their social now, them and ESPN posted the same Kevin Durant clip at the same time where he approached the dude that called him a bitch.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I'm
going
like,
to beat them at that.
You're not going to be, you can't win that game.
You ain't going to beat them at that.
You are going to lose that game.
Yep.
It's inevitable. The only way to ever win is provide something different. That's why, like, Complexes lasted as long as it did, because they found different angles.
Yep.
That's why Vice lasted as long as it did, because they found different angles. But these places, they're just trying to replicate what everybody else is doing. And it's like, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. But good luck. If you want to soften the landing before you go broke, go for it.
Yeah, that's tough. Let's hit up this list then, because top 10's not too crazy. But I just want to go number 50. Run DMC King of Rock.
At 50.
At 50. I'm not mad at this. I'm not a huge Run DMC fan. But we have stuff on here like DJ Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince is 49. Nice and Smooth, debut album, which was 1989. They barely made it.
Damn.
46. Jungle Brothers, Done by the Forces of Nature, which might be my dad's favorite album.
Man.
It's 44.
Jungle Brothers don't get enough credit for how they merged house and hip hop together.
Loves the Jungle.
Girl, I House You. Oh my God. Like that.
Kumo D being above that at 41 is a little criminal. MC Shan Down by Law is 40. It's not good. Queen Latifah, All Hail the Queen, 38. Another Run DMC at 37, self-title.
Oh, the self-title. All right.
Yeah. We have Ice-T Power at 32.
Iconic album cover.
Straight pimp. MC Light as a Rock at 30.
Light as a Rock should be higher. What MC Light did for women in hip hop,
Not talked about enough.
It's not. Like, I know there's Queen Latifah, I know there's Roxanne Shante, but what MC Light did when she came up with the husk in her voice and like Poor Georgie and all that shit, like, I'm glad she's still working. Every time I hear Light on an award show, I'm like, thank God, because that woman doesn't get enough flowers. She's
Facts.
incredible.
And then Eazy-E, Easy Does It, 27.
Ooh, yeah.
LL Cool J Radio is 28, by the way.
Okay.
2 Live Crew is 26.
Boy, I got in trouble playing that out.
Boogie Down Productions by All Means Necessary is 24. EPMD, Unfinished Business, 23.
Damn, I forgot that came out in the 80s.
Yeah, Third Base, the Cactus album is above both of those.
Hell yeah. Yo, the Cactus album? Oh, fuck. The Gas Face? Hell yeah. Yo, Third Base? Oh, my God. Third Base gave us so much
They
shit.
put critic scores next to these. So I'm talking about the ones that have 90 or higher critic scores.
Uh-huh.
That has the highest critic score so far.
Dude.
Of 20 through 35 and 95.
Go back and listen to the Cactus album and, like, just, like, the Gas Face, them shitting on Hammer. Like, yo.
I remember that.
MC Search. Oh, my God. Like, that.
Searchlight Production.
The Cactus album is incredible. I mean, it was kind of the gateway for a lot of people for MF Doom as well.
Wow. That far back?
Yes. KMD was, yeah, way back.
And then Houdini, Escape is 20. Ghetto Boys, which is crazy. March 1989. Grip It on That Other Level. Ghetto Boys been around forever.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Scarface.
Yeah, Rap A Lot Records on the print right there. Eric B. and Rakim Follow Leader at 18.
Okay.
Beastie Boys, Paul Boutique.
Ooh. Where is that? What number is that?
17. Then
that might need to be higher.
16 with a perfect critic score. That's 16. Jungle Brothers, Straight Out the Jungle.
That album.
It's at 16, but critics scored it perfect.
Because it's a weird. Okay, I get this because what year did that come out? 80.
It is
80?
November 8th, 1988.
Okay, when that album came out, it's a very weird thing to say. There weren't a lot of hip hop publications, so their ability to blend house and hip hop in the way that they did was appealing to a lot of people.
Makes sense.
So white writers had an easier time digesting a Jungle Brothers album than they would like an Easy Does It, right? So I get it, but it's an incredible album nonetheless.
15 with the lowest critic score I've seen. No, I'll take that back. There's one that's worse. All right, so 15 is DLC. No one can do it better.
Wow.
Only has an 80 out of 100 critic score. Then Biz Markie going off at 14. This is the lowest critic score on the list, tied for the lowest. Too Short, Born to Mac at 13.
What? Too Short's Born to Mac is a very interesting album because I could see critics being like, I don't like this.
It's acquired.
But I remember the day that I, like, for anybody who had them 12s in their trunk, boy, that shit would rattle trunks all up and down it, man.
I'm sure I couldn't go to the Bay. And, like, you can't go to the Bay and be like, yo, this shit got a 60 out of 100.
Hey,
be like, where?
Fuck out of here.
Yeah, because that's their shit. Like, that's like their magnum opus.
It wasn't like Too Short was ever like a dope rapper, right? Like he just said player ass shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he just said player ass shit. So I get why it's a low critic score, but it was a necessary album.
Shit, an album I haven't even heard before is at 12, Ultramagnetic MCs,
What?
Critical Beatdown.
Oh man. Go back. Well, I don't know how it holds up today if you never heard it before.
Yeah.
It may not be, but yeah, the UMC's album is incredible.
That's at 12. LL
That's
Cool
cool.
J.
That's Cool Keith. That's where you find Cool Keith.
At 88, though, Cool Keith to me seemed like he was around way earlier, but that's all right. LL Cool J, Bigger and Deffer is at 11. That's tied for the lowest critic score with 60.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a particularly great LL album. It's not my favorite, but it had Bad on it. So. Yeah. So cool. Now we're in the top 10. This is where it gets good. So the lowest score in the top 10 is a 78. Everything else is 93 or higher.
All right.
Perfect 100 critic score, but only comes in at 10 on their list. EPMD, Strictly Business.
Whew.
10.
Boy.
Perfect critic score.
So a list of like this for Complex, I'm assuming they're looking at the impact as well as how good the album is.
I love that they put both, though. Like, yo, critics, like actual critics think this, but this is our rank.
Yeah, what Eric Sermon and Paris Smith did with that album, and then they're introducing the word of the Def Squad and Redman and the Headbanger, yeah. But I could see where like
88 has a case to be the greatest year in hip hop history.
It does. 93 would like have a word though. But
looking at some of these albums, a lot say 88.
88 was a hell of a year. But I can see why it's at number 10. I got to see what else is above it first. Big
Daddy Kane, Long Live the Kane at number 9.
Fuck, man. That might need to be higher.
Nope. There's no space. This Criminal. Number 8, De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising.
De La Soul, 3 Feet.
And the critic rating, only 94. You got to be fucking kidding me. But
a lot of people didn't like the Daisy era of hip-hop. They were a little confused by what De La was doing. But they introduced us to the world to the skits and Prince Paul.
Yeah. So that's number 8. 7, Eric B. and Rakim, Paid in Full.
Okay.
Another perfect rating.
Okay, yeah. Change the game.
But that's 7. 6, and I get why this is above that, but it's really not. Slick Rick, The Great Adventures of Slick Rick.
Oh, listen.
It's not ahead of Paid in Full as an album. But I get it, because Slick Rick is more mainstream and nostalgia, and he's great. Like, it should be in the top 10, but, like, not over Paid in Full.
This is difficult for me, because Slick Rick is arguably one of the greatest storytellers in hip-hop.
Yeah.
And
that has some of his best stories.
Yes, and his blend of raunchy and hilarious, like, he injected humor. Like, Paid in Full obviously should be high. I got to go through the rest of the list. But if you look at what I love Great Adventures of Slick Rick. I love Mona Lisa. Like, you go through that album don't miss. That again, it was one of the first albums I listened to all the way through, and I went back and I was like, there's a few things that raised me. Richard Pryor stand-up comedy.
Your grandma gave zero fucks
Yo.
on what you were listening and watching.
I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. But Richard Pryor, I think it's the one on Sunset Boulevard where he has the red shirt with the black pants, and he talks about like fighting Leon Spinks and getting a heart attack. It fucked me up. Like when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh my God, what is this man talking about?" Right? Because it was hilarious, but as a kid, some of it resonated with you. Some of it, like I didn't know what pussy was as a kid. I was like, "What is going on?" But he's talking about the monkey running over his arm, stick his dick in his head. I was like, as a kid, that's hilarious.
Hilarious.
That part alone is hilarious. And then Richard Pryor was like, I had to go get him some pussy, and I was like, is there a can of pussy? But he bought him a female monkey, and they go fucked, and they died. And it was a great story at the time, but it taught me about storytelling and long-term jokes, like the setup. Richard Pryor was phenomenal at that. The Great Adventures of Slick Rick. To that point, I'm growing up in New York. My grandmother's this elderly white woman who I'm listening to like Journey and like hair bands and whatever's on the radio at the time. And then Slick Rick comes on and tells these humorous stories with this British accent. And I was like, and I would write down the lyrics, and it all made sense to me. Like if you go back and listen to like Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins for the Top Gun soundtrack, you write on the lyrics like, this is stupid, right? It just sounds really good. Yeah. But The Great Adventures of Slick Rick, if you Lick the Balls, Mona Lisa, children's story, adult story, and the way those stories are told, like that is art. So I can see why it's ranked higher than Paid in Full because, that Slick Rick was undeniable at that time.
Top ones. These next two I would drop below both. So, but again, personal preference. Beastie Boys, License to Ill.
Oh, it's
classic.
I
don't go back and listen to it as much as I listen to them.
You don't, but it redefined sampling. It like what they did on that album is incredible, and it gave a space for white folks. They were like,
they can rhyme.
Yeah, like they could rhyme. They partied, like they sampled. It was hip hop. Beastie Boys also don't get enough credit for what they did.
Number 4, Run DMC, Raising Hell.
Okay, the significance of it is
it's perfect.
It's not my favorite album. Great Adventures of Slick Rick is one of my favorite albums, but I can see why it's that high.
Number 3, significance as well. Critic score, only a 78. NWA, Straight Outta Compton.
Oh, fuck yeah.
August 8th, 1988.
That changed my life. That's another album. I heard that and I was like, the cops are doing what? Fuck the police. My grandma was like, what's wrong with you? I was like, yeah, fuck the police. What they said.
What they said.
What those guys said. They ain't lying to me.
Number 2, and again, it's hard to move shit up because there's a lot of good stuff on this list. This top 10 ain't bad. No. They ain't really missing a top 10. You can shuffle it around. Number 2, Public Enemy, Takes a Nation of Millions to hold us back. Number 2, a lot of people would put that number 1.
That radicalized me.
On their entire hip-hop list ever. People would put that number 1. It's number 2 on this list. And I'm not mad. But that's tough. That's tough to beat, but again, I like it at 2. Number 1, one of my favorite albums is The Teacher. Come on. Boogie Down Productions, Criminal Minded is number 1.
Criminal Minded, you've been blind. I'll never forget this. The importance, one day we'll do a Patreon on the importance of the opening bars.
Oh,
Prodigy was really good at this.
Oh, we got to bring like a 10 and 10.
Yeah.
Like of just opening bars.
Like Prodigy was, I break bills, $100 bills.
Yeah.
Like Jesus. But Criminal Minded, you've been blind. Like the way KRS comes into that, he strangles you. Yep. And it's like, all right, I'm here now. I'm here. And then the way that shit hits, for me, I put Public Enemy above it.
I think the majority of people would, but my inner Bronx in me. Come on, man. Criminal Minded, Boogie Down. Talking about sheer production and what you can do in beats and how they just, and KRS One, I understand. I get it. I get where people say Rakim changed the game, right? And then kind of Nas changed it after, like stylistically.
Yeah.
To me, it was always KRS One.
Well, it started there.
Yeah, and then like he evolved with every era. Like he never got bad at rapping. He's still not bad at rapping.
No.
He's never aged out. You could put him on a Griselda track today and he'll body that shit.
Yeah.
He's always good at rapping.
The Blastmaster is, I remember buying the Return of the Boom Bap album. And at first I was like, it's cool. And then I like Sound of the Police, and then I was like, this is not cool. This is amazing, right? Like, because KRS-One, there's nobody in hip hop that had that kind of voice. Like, it just smacked you in the face.
Yep.
And then it was just bars, and like Chris can rap.
Rap his ass off.
So I could, like, I don't have any qualms with Criminal Mind to be a number one. It's just, for me, it takes a nation. For me, when I heard "Don't Believe the Hype" the first time, don't believe the hype. Like, all the way
the juxtaposition of those two on the mic is
Terminator X. Like, man,
who always gets slept on in the equation.
Yeah, it's just,
but it's still one of those things. Like, it was a perfect mix of characters.
It was what Public Enemy did for me was, like I say, it radicalized me, and I mean it, because KRS-One taught me about, like, Black history. Like, KRS-One was the first person I ever heard reference Marcus Garvey on the record, and I was like, who the fuck is that? And I picked up a book. Like, the Blastmaster did that for me. What Public Enemy did was modernized it. So it was like, I would watch the videos, and I'd see, like, the 5%ers, and I'd see, like, the Nation, and I'm like, and then stepping, and I'm like, yo, what is this? Right? Like, what is going on here? My grandma, and I knew it was good because my grandma, like, turn that shit off, right? And I was like, I knew it was good when she said that shit. But it was like seeing what Public Enemy was representing, and, you know, Elvis was a hero to someone. But boy,
you're talking bars?
Like, what Chuck D was doing as an MC, and to balance it out with Flavor Flav, and then just the production from the Bomb Squad being as incredible as they were. And then it was just all about, I mean, funny, is the X-Clan on that list? The top 50 list?
No.
That's crazy to me. X-Clan should absolutely be on that list. But it in an era of, like, African medallions, it was just, Chuck D wore just leather and fucking had Spike Lee. Man, I ain't mad at this list. But hip-hop was so diverse in these 88, 89, from De La to Public Enemy to NWA, and these things.
Just some of the names we mentioned. It was everywhere. It's really when the boom started, because we had Two Live Crew down south.
Yeah.
In this, we had Ghetto Boys with an album on here. We clearly had the Bay represented in this list. Ice-T didn't make the list.
Yeah, he did. Power.
Oh, okay, yeah, I did.
Power's on the list.
Yeah, Ice-T. So everywhere is really represented.
Yeah, like in
Midwest excluded, maybe.
Like Big Daddy Kane, I think you said he was 9?
Yeah.
Like, Big Daddy Kane to me was like, that introduced me to metaphors.
Yeah, Long Live the Kane was 9.
When Big
I
Daddy
had a Strictly Business.
I fought on the track. Best believe that shit sound good. I said, damn. I said, God damn, you can say that?
Yeah.
It was same with Fife. Busting nothing inside your eyes to show you where I come from. I said, what? Like, who is, like, these are bars. Like, anything, my entire life has been built on, if you can do something that I didn't think of, that's dope.
Yeah.
If I feel like I can do what you just did, I don't care. But when I heard Fife, I was like, again, like Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, the way they told comedy, I was just like, I couldn't even fathom doing something like that. I couldn't fathom those jokes. I couldn't fathom what Big Daddy Kane was doing. Also, girls thought Big Daddy Kane was hot.
Yeah.
So it was like, my man was over here. My man was over here giving you bars, but he was smooth. And he was a dark-skinned brother on top of that. Like, there was, man, long live Big Daddy Kane, man. Another one who, I don't know if he gets enough credit. I know, I talked to Ninth Wonder, this is maybe like last year, about him catching up with Kane. And Ninth Wonder used to always berate me about, like, teaching and shit like that. And he was like, man, because these kids don't know what Kane did. Like, they ain't no Jay-Z if it ain't for Kane.
I just saw Lupe on Twitter today. He has a course.
Yeah. Where's he at?
Harvard.
He's at some big.
He's at, like, a huge school teaching a hip hop course, the history of hip hop, and, like, all the different shit. I was like, yo, that's wild.
Like, somebody teaching a course on 1988, because 88 socially as well as musically and everything that happened, like this, we're coming out of the Reaganomics era. We're heading into George Bush Sr.
Damn.
We don't get Clinton for another 4 years, and, like, we have the Central Park Five. We have the Rodney King riots are right around the corner. Like,
you had
the crack
Strictly
era,
Business, Big Daddy Kane, Slick Rick, and NWA, and It Takes a Nation of Millions, all in 88.
It's again,
all in 88, and plus, like, 20 more songs on this list.
So when you look at hip hop in 2023, there were so many albums that sound exactly the same.
Yeah, none of those.
88 is completely different.
Yeah.
Everybody's playing a different style of ball, right? Everybody's not playing Jokic ball. Everybody's not playing Embiid ball. There's a Steph Curry game out there. Like everybody's playing a different type of
Like
game.
the hip hop Avengers.
Yeah,
everybody got a different superpower, but everybody is dope.
It's incredible. It's really incredible what they did in 88. And kids be like, oh man, like that shit was whack. And it's like, nah, bro. That's laid the foundation. Why are you here today?
Yep.
Like I wish somebody would tell me a Malcolm X speech was whack because it's old. Oh, that's whack, man. He ain't had no bars. Somebody gonna do it.
Go throw on that Dr. Umar.
Yeah. Give me that Tariq Nasheed. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, you gotta know where you came from, man. You gotta know who laid these foundations. And again, like 3 Feet High and Rise is such an important album because when everybody was bad, these motherfuckers were happy.
Having
just
a
me,
blast.
myself, and I.
Yep. Having fun in the classroom.
Yeah, just having a blast. The haircuts, the clothes. I was
There was
like,
always someone for someone to relate to. And even
Yes.
if you didn't, you respected it because they were so fly and dope with it.
100%, man.
So yeah, it was great. Great doing this episode of Blast from the Past. So much fun. And again, we're gonna berate you guys with a ton more hip hop episodes here on the Patreon. This was really fun to take it back to the joint. But I love Dre's idea of doing the 10 best, like doing the best openings, and we can just run through like our back and forth of like best openings. I gotta go home and put pen to pad and figure out like, yo, I'm gonna write them down, old school, not even typing in my phone.
I'm telling you, man, Prodigy might be one of the best at this. Shook Ones. Like, you go down the list of
HNIC album is one of my favorite albums that no one talks.
The man comes out, and he made it like a purpose. Like, his first 4 bars were going to be something you'd be like, all right, you remember it. You remember it. Think about it. Shook Ones. Everybody remembers how Shook Ones opens.
Yep. Oh, but Havoc's production is also.
Oh, it is. It is.
Like,
I'm just saying, the way Prodigy delivers bars was always like, all right.
Because they let the beat ride for a second when the song started. So when he came on, it was like, okay, here I am.
That's what the Killers in the $100 Bills. All right.
Yeah, can't get enough. We're really going to dive into hip-hop on Patreon as well as we mix stuff up going forward. We appreciate everyone who subscribes. Tell your friends. Tell everyone else what they're missing, especially dope-ass shows like this when we go in the vault. Thank you. If you guys have any ideas, anything you want us to talk about, please feel free. Hit us up. If you're in the Discord, there's a whole hip-hop section. Let us know what type of shows, what you guys want, what you want us to dive into next. This guy's a historian, obviously, taking lunch money from the school to grab albums and stuff. So statute of limitations is done. So we'll make sure we touch on everything. We appreciate you all. Thank you, everyone here at Blue Wire Studios. Again, we'll be back next week, and look for it next Wednesday, depending on when you guys listen to this. But it is the 28th. You guys, it's your show, Corner of Friends. I'm going to pick 3 people. If you want to be on it, rush to me. Hit me up on Patreon. Leave a comment. Once I post it, let me know, I need a spot on this first one. And you got it. So we're going to make that happen next week. Thank you, everyone. Till next time, we're out.
Peace. I break legs, ribs.